here's the disclaimer. Better take some kind of a painkiller because today I invite you on a trip to the kingdom of pain and suffering. The compilation of the most vicious low kick knockouts. You were warned. Have a great time. Justin Gaethje versus Brian Foster. Welcome to the Red Room. Today's spectacle starts with a current UFC fighter and, as it turned out, one of the biggest haters of other fighters' legs. Let's go back in time to look at one of Highlight's exemplary performances. On March the 12th of 2016, the young champion of the local organization WSOF was looking to have his fourth title defense. By that time, the 27-year-old Justin, though being young, already presented a no less wild and irrepressible version capable of grinding down his opponent in mere minutes. His record consisted of 15 convincing victories with only 2 fights going to a decision. Such a resume did not promise Foster anything good, and you are going to see proof of that very soon. The start of the fight was pretty exciting. The contender tried to pressure Gaethje from the very first seconds and attack him to different levels. However, this tactic stopped working pretty quickly for the reason that though the champion did not shy away from brawling, he did not focus on landing his shots to Brian's head. Justin was methodically and cold-bloodedly battering Foster's legs, which delivered its fruits quite soon. The contender started to take notice of that and got distracted by this burning pain in his limbs, which led to his first knockdown in the very beginning.
Looked like Nostradamus. Oh! And there Gaethje pushes him down. Foster actually landed on that.
Highlight's low kicks can be described in many different ways. However, we think that the perfect one would be to say that it sobered his opponents up. Just like that, meaning that the entire career of Gaethje shows you a particular tendency. No matter which attacks or tactics one uses against him, he nullified all of that thanks to his work to the legs. Just imagine, you think that you can break this explosive, clumsy, and not the most technical fighter, but then he attacks you with a low kick like red hot steel to the very bone. This would evaporate your fighting spirit. And that's exactly what happened to Brian Foster, who in the very first minutes learned how bad things might get. The pain was so severe that he couldn't even keep his head high and hide muscle contractions on his face, while Gaethje was just starting to have fun. It seemed as though he almost forgot about other body parts he could attack and totally focused on destroying his opponent's limbs. It was all over in less than 2 minutes after another shot landed above the knee, after which he didn't even need to follow up. We believe that after this fight, Foster was occasionally waking up at night in cold sweat due to flashbacks from one of the most traumatic experiences in his life. Ernesto Host versus Igor Vovchanchyn. While Justin is a modern-day leg hunter, in the 2000s and earlier years, Mr. Perfect was the one known as a killer of limbs in the literal sense. Throughout his incredibly rich and vivid career in martial arts, the Dutch athlete became famous among the community as the most formidable and dangerous representative of the industry who was able to break not only legs but also the careers and lives of other fighters regardless of their background. You think that you're a great kickboxer or Muay Thai representative with a high pain tolerance who doesn't feel pain like others do? Do everybody a favor, just last 2 to 3 rounds with Ernesto and you will find out what borderline insane pain truly is. This guy will literally pierce through this adrenaline rush that helps you in the ring and will cause a feeling of desperation and pain that even you would call unbearable. But enough talking. In July of 1999, Host welcomed the Ukrainian legend of mixed martial arts in the face of Igor Vovchanchyn at K1 Dream. And with all due respects to the veteran, in this fight he didn't look like himself even in the slightest. Just so you know that we are telling the truth, here's the stats on your screen which shows that by this moment, the record of Mr. Perfect accounted for 13 losses and 67 wins, 48 of which were earned by a knockout, and not to the head guys, not at all. So the fight starts. Ernesto aims at the opponent's hip right from the get-go, which makes the fans scream as they understand what it will soon lead to. Just a couple of shots from Host happened to be enough for Vovchanchyn to rush at him headfirst and try to converge. While Igor frantically tries to find an angle to attack the head, the Dutch athlete methodically touches his legs. Frankly speaking, he doesn't really care where he lands. To the lead leg or not, the inner side or the external, every low kick of this man can be recognized as a weapon, and you would be foolish to argue with that. Any distance, any sequence, brawl or starting contest, fussing, calculated and measured exchanges with the opponent, Mr. Perfect never misses an opportunity to hurt the Ukrainian's limbs. The only more or less effective tactic of Igor was to sacrifice his legs and immediately hit Ernesto's head as soon as he tried to swing for another low kick. However, that's what you shouldn't do against a fighter who can tear any muscle tissue and ligaments without a knife. The beauty of Host's work was that he truly didn't care from what distance he lands his main weapon, because any strike that hits the target already has everything to shut his opponent down. Very soon it got to a point where Vovchanchyn was blatantly trying to get close to him, grabbing his legs and attempting some sort of takedown. Clinches, pushing Ernesto to the ropes, all of that resembled actions of a desperate man who tried to come up with anything in hopes to survive. The Ukrainian's gait also changed. His movement became hesitant and slow, like it's clear that it's quite tough for him to move around on his feet. In the end of the second round, he fell down on the mat, while his face expressed utter shock for the suffering he was going through. Vovchanchyn came out in the third with a full realization that he most likely would not make it to the final bell. Mr. Perfect made a great contribution to that, as he already caught the Ukrainian in his trap and just had to put on the final touches. A low kick from Host and an immediate knockdown. The referee counts to 10. Second low kick, the situation repeats itself. The poor Ukrainian tried to switch stances, but it didn't help him at all, as both legs were damaged. The third knockdown caused another fall for Igor, and the fight ends. Sure, Vovchanchyn deserved all the respect in the world for his heart, but to be honest, it wasn't worth it. His legs only went through extra trauma, although he already received a lot more damage than he should have. Douglas Lima versus Mikhail Zarev. When we talk about the suffering of professional fighters from sustained traumas, about all these grimaces of pain and terror, we can't help but mention one of the main suppliers of this very suffering of the current era. Right now, being a veteran, Douglas Lima doesn't compete that often anymore, but in his younger years, he tried to perform inside the octagon as frequently as possible. And we don't lie when we say that his every appearance always drew a lot of attention due to his peculiar aura, which is manifesting itself when it steps into the cage. The Phenom built a reputation as a very dangerous kicker a long time ago, as he was able to shut people down with just 1 or 2 shots if you were not thinking about defense. And in fact, today's case is one of such examples. It was 2013. Semi-finals of the welterweight Grand Prix in Bellator, where the tough Brazilian went up against a Russian prospect with a decent potential. The fight started rather slowly, but Lima immediately let his opponent know that he was looking to tear his limbs off, or at least batter them so badly that he himself would ask to end this fight prematurely. Zarev doesn't want to play catch-up with the executioner and acts in accordance with the game plan. He puts all of his efforts into getting in close range, clinch and takedowns with subsequent control. Douglas does not stand still either and focuses on defenses, but as time has shown us, he managed to get up from the ground only closer to the last minute of the first round. The Brazilian is not in a hurry even in these circumstances. He knows that he has a trump card up his sleeve, which his opponent is not ready for, as he waits for the right opportunity to use it. Mild low kicks that don't seem to be dangerous to Mikhail, though he feels an unpleasant sensation around his knee area, do not cause any big troubles. For now. In the very end of the round, right with the bell, Lima threw such a heavy slicing low to the knee of the Russian fighter that it made him go down. As we can see on this footage, this single attack from Lima was enough for his opponent to start limping to his corner and let his team know that the jig was up. In fact, the Phenom began to enjoy the fruits of his labor in the first round very soon. After 15 seconds into the second round, a precise and sharp strike from Lima put Zarev down on the canvas. Just check out this sound.
Certainly a legal shot. Oh man, sharping kick there again.
Indeed, the Brazilians are a different kind of warrior whose low kicks should be given a special license. Further action couldn't be called anything but helplessness. Douglas Lima ruthlessly and intentionally attacked the same spot, which made Mikhail go down time and time again. The referee already knew that he should stop the beating very soon because the Russian could barely stand up. A couple of low kicks more from the Brazilian only made it worse for the fighter, who let everybody know that he couldn't and didn't want to continue this torture. That was the end of the fight, a TKO due to Zarev's inability to even stand still without grimaces on his face. Alexei Ignashov versus Jan Nortier. Now let's get straight to the point, as we are going to talk about a performance of the Belarusian kickboxer who in 2003 competed in K1 and shared the ring with the South African fighter nicknamed the Giant. We should also mention that Ignashov was a multiple-time world champion in Muay Thai. This mere fact should already inspire you with some doubts if it was a good idea for Jan to fight him. However, it seemed like he decided to play with his fate, and as we know, such games never end well. In fact, you can see a testament to that yourself. In this bout, Nortier relied on his pressure and boxing combinations, which he landed time and time again, looking to break through the defense of the Belarusian. The latter acted more masterfully. He let the Giant apply pressure but also demonstrated a brilliant defense, all while putting in work to his vis-a-vis legs. Jan did not pay attention to the first few low kicks in hopes that he would break his opponent faster than he would damage his legs. As it turned out, this assumption happened to be quite naive, all because the accumulative effect is an insidious thing. At a certain moment, it might catch up to you with such acute pain that you will forget where you are, let alone think about the actual fight. Nortier persistently worked as the first number and continued to go after Alexei. However, it couldn't continue for too long. At a certain moment, the South African froze in one spot. Everybody started to figure out, even the commentators, that the last low kicks began to have an expected effect. Ignashov snatched the initiative in the middle of the round and, not hiding his intentions, pounced on the poor leg of a no less poor Nortier, who was really worried about his limb. When there was only half a minute left, another slicing low caused the chain of events which eventually led to the finale of this battle. Jan got completely exhausted, stopped hiding his pain, and literally began jumping on one leg to the nearest rope. The referee stopped this execution, ultimately not letting the Belarusian finish Jan Nortier. And it wasn't necessary, as the Giant's left leg was already shut down, if not destroyed. Rob Kaman versus John Moncayo. Agony, brutal falls, bone breaks, masks of terror on the face, and loud screams of pain and suffering. The fighter from Amsterdam with a great career in kickboxing saw a lot of that stuff. Rob Kaman is one of those representatives of martial arts who can be rightfully associated with leg strikes. What else is there to say when not only his fans, but the whole sports industry called this guy Mr. Low Kick? The examples are not far away. Just so you understand, the record of the legendary performer accounted for 97 wins and 12 losses, with 77 victories earned by a stoppage. It appears to us that you already know how he managed to pile bodies up and score these victories. Now we will overview a fight against the American John Moncayo, who went through 9 layers of hell in September of 1983. Like all the previous low kickers who showed their mastery to you today, Kaman also did not hide his intentions and plans, preferring to blatantly play with his victim. Regardless of the distance or his opponent's actions, Rob always did the exact same thing. He simply butchered his opponent's limbs at any given opportunity. We might mention John Moncayo's cocky and jaunty mindset, who at first actively pressured Kamen and tried to catch him with his boxing. We specifically highlight this point so you could compare it to the final result. As time passes, Mr. Low Kick strictly follows his game plan and hurts Moncayo's legs more and more viciously each time he lands. He puts in so much power in his attacks that sometimes he loses balance himself. You can only imagine the impact from his shots. No Jean-Claude Van Damme with his palm tree is a match to this man, with all due respect. Soon comes the moment of crisis. We decided to call it that, as another attack to the target from Kamen causes a big reaction from the American. Poor guy lost his cool and rushed at Rob with everything he had in his arsenal, exploded and began hammering him with all kinds of shots. He was literally enraged by the pain he suffered, while Kamen continued adding fuel to the fire. He did not stop his barrage, which by the third minute brought John to the stage of acceptance. The subsequent slicing low kicks dropped Moncayo numerous times. You can imagine the caliber of pain this poor guy felt that he couldn't even stand. It was something unbelievable. As a result, everything ended on a sad note for the American fighter. Another portion of low kicks from Rob Kamen led to both fighters falling down on the ground. While the Dutch managed to get back up, the one who took all of these shots couldn't do it without assistance. Mike Bernardo versus Jerome Lebana. Let's overview another case, but of a bigger scale. In May of 1995, the legendary organization K1 held another World Grand Prix. We chose a fight that identified the next semi-finalist of this event. In his time, Lebana and Mike Bernardo treated us with several vivid performances which went down in history and left a huge legacy in the sport. The French himself had an incredible career throughout which he beat many legends of that time, including Ernesto Host, who already distinguished himself today. In this particular case, we focused on the second fight between these guys. Here's a spoiler of what we know based on the official information. This fight ended in the second round via TKO, but let's overview the action that led to this outcome. The fight started with the French cyborg fulfilling his plan, as he instantly picked his opponent's lead leg as his target. The South African fighter tried to answer back, not being inferior in speed or power to his vis-a-vis, but he didn't account for one thing. Lebana just needed his limb, and it was a lot easier to reach than his head. Mike desperately unloaded all of his arsenal in hopes to break the tide of the fight and somehow stop the punishment of this single spot that caused him an insufferable pain, but in vain. With every subsequent snap on Mike's leg from a sharp strike, his chances to make it to a decision, let alone get the win, were quickly evaporating. Jerome was cold-bloodedly and methodically getting closer to his goal, inflicting unbearable suffering on his opponent. Regardless of what was happening and how the events were unfolding, he was completely focused on totally destroying Bernardo. And that's how it went down in one of the sequences in the second round. Mike tried to attack again, ate another flesh-tearing low, and simply fell down, not being able to think about a fight or any resistance. It's hard to look at his face, expressing torment and agony. Jose Aldo versus Uriah Faber. And in the end, we will suggest you look at one of the most vivid and notable battles in the modern history of mixed martial arts. Jose Aldo, who doesn't need introduction, doesn't have clean knockouts by low kicks on his resume, but it doesn't change the fact that his leg kicks caused huge problems to the opponents in front of him. One of these lucky guys happened to be the legendary UFC veteran Uriah Faber, who opposed our hero back in 2010. By the way, the American is still seen as the biggest victim of the King of Rio because on that night he went through the most traumatic experience in all the years of his active career. Just so you understand, the Brazilian warrior never tried to work for a result and hope for the judges. He never specifically targeted a calf. Aldo is a representative of an old Muay Thai school which teaches their guys to attack the hips viciously and with full power. Only incredible endurance and the will of Faber did not let him go down in those 25 minutes of hell, which frankly speaking played a really bad joke on him. Eventually, after losing to Jose, Uriah spent a very long time recovering from injuries. His purple and swollen legs made a lot of noise in the media, which once again proved how effective low kicks are. Leave your opinion in the comments below. Which of the fights made you feel phantom pain? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the new videos, and of course, hit the like button if you enjoyed this one. See you soon.